Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Homeless man saves millionaire. Don't eat, your wife put poison. The city of New York never sleeps. It pulses, it vibrates, it bubbles with an energy that is both exhilarating and relentless. Yellow taxis honk, passers-by cross paths in a ceaseless ballet, luxury shop windows sparkle like jewels under the lights of the skyscrapers. Yet, in this immense crowd, where everything seems to move too fast, where glances flee, one man goes completely unnoticed. His name is Caleb Morris, 56 years old, but life has worn him down prematurely. His grizzled beard is unkempt, dotted with white streaks like the snow of a seemingly endless winter. His gloves are torn at the fingers, revealing rough hands, cracked by the cold and years of wandering. His sports bag is old, threadbare, the zipper broken, miraculously held together by a knotted thread. To passers-by, Caleb is just another homeless man. A blurred face, a man avoided, ignored, sometimes despised. Few know that behind his worn appearance, his tired body, lies a brilliant past. Because Caleb wasn't always a man of the street. In the past, it was professor of organic chemistry at the prestigious Columbia University, a respected scientist, recognized for his cutting-edge work on industrial toxins, invited to international conferences, and a passionate mentor to his students. He had built his life around the rigor of science, discipline, and knowledge. Then everything fell apart. The cruelest tragedy tore his heart out, the loss of his only daughter, taken by a devastating illness when she was only 9 years old. This immense pain, impossible to heal, rocked his world. Caleb's marriage exploded under the weight of grief and silence. His wife left him, unable to cope with the void that had grown between them. The rigorous professor spiraled into depression. Gradually, work, recognition, and pride all crumbled beneath his feet. Without support or close family, he found himself on the streets, rejected by a society that forgave neither weakness nor failure. Today, Caleb lives in the shadow of skyscrapers, his steps leading him each morning to the same tired bench. On the corner of Madison Avenue et East 59th Street, he sits, wrapped in his too-thin coat, watching the crowd pass by without ever stopping. Right in front of him, the Silver Oak, a renowned restaurant, a temple to the powerful and the wealthy, whose large bay windows reflect the sun and luxury. Among the regular customers of the Silver Oak, one name always came up with respect and admiration: Thomas Whitmore. At 47, Thomas was the very definition of a self-made billionaire. Founder and CEO of the conglomerate Whitmore Global Developments, he had built his empire stone by stone, with unwavering determination, a visionary spirit and a rigorous work ethic. His demeanor was that of a man in control of his destiny: perfectly tailored suit, gold watch that sparkled with every movement, reserved but warm smile, calm and thoughtful gaze. At his side every day came his young wife, Vanessa Hart Whitmore, a former model turned socialite philanthropist. She was the epitome of glamour and elegance. Always impeccably dressed, with that enigmatic smile that never touched her eyes, Vanessa exuded an aura that was both seductive and distant. Her gait, light and precise, contrasted with the quiet robustness of her husband. To Caleb, a silent observer, these two formed a fascinating couple. Every morning, he saw them walk through the doors of the Silver Oak, settle down at their usual table by the bay window. A perfectly regulated, almost ritualized routine. But as the weeks went by, Caleb began to see beyond appearances. He first noticed a strange detail: Vanessa never ate during their lunches. She carefully chose her dishes, ordered for Thomas, but she herself often settled for a simple glass of water, or a salad with almost no green leaves. A behavior that, in her eyes, rang false. Then he watched the way she served Thomas coffee. Each time, Vanessa held the cup with exaggerated delicacy, as if hiding a secret. And each time she handed him the drink, she looked away, studiously avoiding eye contact. Caleb felt his heart race, for the gesture reminded him of years of study, of research, of cases where poison was administered with care and discretion. Little by little, the memories flooded into his mind like flashes: the invisible microdoses, the minute changes in color, the barely perceptible smell, the behavior of someone who manipulates without ever being noticed. With the rigor of a scientist, Caleb began to note in a small notebook the precise dates, the dishes ordered, and Thomas's reactions after each meal. He noticed patterns, a slight pallor after certain lunches, furtive absences, moments of worry hidden beneath forced smiles. In his solitude, Caleb mentally prepared a hypothesis. And the more details he gathered, the more this hypothesis took shape. Then, one day, everything changed. That morning, the light wavered through the heavy gray clouds that stretched over Manhattan. The timid sun struggled to pierce the thick layer of atmosphere, casting a pale veil over the glass facades of the neighborhood. At the Silver Oak, the luxury restaurant, the first customers were taking their seats, their elegant murmurs mingling with the delicate clinking of cutlery. Caleb, sitting on his familiar bench, felt a cold lump in the pit of his stomach. His gaze never left the familiar figure approaching the terrace, arm in arm with Vanessa. Their footsteps echoed in his memory like a portent of something to come, fraught with consequences. The two figures sat at their usual table near the bay window, bathed in diffused light. Caleb watched intently, his breath slowed by concentration. Vanessa pulled a small, shiny bottle from her bag, barely larger than an ointment, hidden in the shadow of her sleeve. The movement was furtive, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. She subtly tilted her head forward and, with a controlled gesture, poured a few clear drops into Thomas's steaming cup of coffee. The liquid took on a cloudy sheen, but the conglomerate boss seemed unaware. Caleb felt his heart race. It was the critical moment. He leaped from his bench, his legs finding the strength of vanished youth. He ran across the street, ignoring the surprised glances or passing cars. He bumped into a waiter carrying a tray and, in a loud, hoarse but clear voice, shouted into the middle of the restaurant. "Don't drink. Sir, your wife put poison in your coffee." Silence fell like a leaden pall. The conversation stopped abruptly, the clinking of glasses stopped, and eyes turned toward him, incredulous, shocked, worried. Vanessa took a step back, her face ashen, her lips trembling, as if caught in the act. Thomas stared at him, frozen, the cup hanging inches from his lips. His eyes were filled with a mixture of incomprehension, anger, and alarm. Two imposing bodyguards rushed to restrain Caleb, pushing him toward the wall. But Caleb, slowly raising his hands to show he wasn't looking for violence, said in a firm voice. "Call the police. Have that cup tested. I know what I saw. And I know how to recognize lead arsenate. I taught toxicology for 20 years. A tense silence followed, then, unexpectedly, Thomas slowly raised his hand to stop the guards. He carefully placed the cup on the table, his fingers trembling slightly. "Nobody touch anything. Let's call the authorities." The atmosphere took on a new gravity. The customers, initially frozen, began to whisper, while the Silver Oaks management, panicked, picked up the phone to alert the police. Caleb, panting but staring, knew his fight had begun. Shortly after Caleb's alert, the police arrived in force at the Silver Oak, quickly followed by a specialized forensic team. The atmosphere was tense, every moment seemed to hang by a thread. The officers secured the premises while technicians in white coats painstakingly took samples of the suspect coffee. They wrapped the cup in a sealed plastic bag, then turned to the vial discreetly found in Vanessa's bag. The restaurant's security cameras were quickly retrieved and analyzed. Vanessa, for her part, remained almost icy calm, a mask of indifference on her face. She fiercely denied any accusation, repeating with a false smile that it was all just a mistake, a passing madness of a homeless man in search of attention. Caleb, taken to the station for further questioning, recounted in minute detail what he had seen, the small, shiny bottle, the precise gesture, Vanessa's shifty gaze as she poured the drops into Thomas's cup. His voice, firm and calm, described the probable nature of the poison. "It is a diluted form of lead arsenate, almost odorless and tasteless. Symptoms do not appear for several hours after ingestion, which would have perfectly simulated a heart attack or natural cardiac arrest. It is an ideal poison for a discreet murder." Investigators took his words very seriously. The analysis of the samples was urgently launched. 3 days later, the truth came out. The test results confirmed the horror: the coffee did indeed contain arsenic. Armed with irrefutable evidence, the police immediately arrested Vanessa Whitmore. Among her belongings, investigators found the bottle she had used, still bearing traces of the poison, as well as her stained gloves, evidence of her handling. Worse still, digital searches revealed encrypted messages between Vanessa and an alleged accomplice, detailing a carefully planned plan to eliminate Thomas and inherit his colossal fortune. Shocking headlines, TV reports, heated debates. A homeless man saves a billionaire from a poisoning. A hero in the shadows, the man that no one didn't want to see. Poison at the Silver Oak, the wife's plot, unmasked by a former teacher who became homeless. But despite the media coverage, Caleb refused to be portrayed as a mascot or a phenomenon. Humbly, he asked for discretion, hoping that the focus would be on truth and justice. Thomas Whitmore, deeply shaken by the revelation, contacted Caleb. In a series of private exchanges, he wanted to thank him, but also to understand the man behind this heroic act. He began a discreet investigation into Caleb's past. What he discovered shocked him. Caleb wasn't just homeless. He had been a brilliant professor, a passionate researcher, a loving father devastated by the tragic loss of his daughter in a preventable accident. The pain, too much to bear, had plunged him into a spiral of depression and social neglect. At a ceremony held to honor Caleb's courage, Thomas spoke these words, filled with sincerity and emotion. "I am the one being celebrated today as a genius of success, a businessman at the top. But it was he, Caleb Morris, who saved my life even though he was invisible to me, forgotten by everyone. In this world, it is too easy to ignore those who fall. Today, I pay tribute to this man, this teacher, this father, this hero." The applause echoed for a long time, while Caleb, humble, looked into the distance, aware that his life had just changed again, but this time towards the light. After the revelations, Thomas Whitmore didn't just want to thank Caleb with words or symbolic gestures. He understood that what he had to offer this man was a real opportunity to rebuild one's life, far from marginalization and precariousness. So, in the days that followed, Thomas sent Caleb a firm and respectful proposal: a comfortable place to live in a quiet neighborhood of Bronx, access to medical and psychological care, and above all, a position in one of its research laboratories specializing in advanced chemical materials. This laboratory, a subsidiary of Whitmore Global Developments, was looking for an expert in toxicology and organic chemistry, a field where Caleb could fully reinvest his knowledge and experience. Thomas insisted to his advisors and collaborators. "This isn't about charity. What Caleb deserves is what every man deserves: a fair chance. A chance to show that you can be reborn, that you can get back up, even when the world has failed you." For Caleb, this proposal was a mixture of conflicting emotions: gratitude, modesty, fear of judgment. But after weeks of hesitation, he accepted. Slowly, he left the streets, the cold benches, and the shifty glances to settle into a small, modest but clean studio apartment in the heart of the Bronx. As the weeks passed, Caleb gradually regained his zest for life. He reconnected with his old passions: in-depth reading, chemistry books, scientific journals. He got into the habit of writing again, notes, articles, sometimes even letters to students he had once mentored. Encouraged by Thomas, he agreed to give a lecture at Columbia University, his alma mater, to a lecture hall filled with curious and respectful students. The room was silent, amazed by the strength and wisdom of a man who had been through hell and returned, not as a victim, but as a witness and a role model. 12 months had passed since that fateful afternoon at the Silver Oak. Caleb Morris was no longer just a homeless savior. He had become a voice listened to, a figure engaged in debates on social exclusion, the fight against the stigmatization of the homeless, and the fundamental right to human dignity. With Thomas's support, he helped create an innovative educational program designed to provide homeless graduates with training, career support, and, most importantly, a supportive community. Every Thursday, in the soft light of the Silver Oak, Caleb met Thomas for coffee. But this time, the tables had turned. Caleb was no longer the one watching from afar, isolated, despised. He was sitting at the table, cup in hand, prepared by an attentive server, under his kind and sure gaze. The greatest luxury is not gold or palaces, but regained dignity, a second chance, and the way others see you that changes.